Join us today as we make a wonderful homemade coconut custard pie. It is so easy. Hello everyone, this is Deb from Just Do Something Homestead, and today we are going to make a impossible coconut custard pie. And this recipe was actually my grandfather's. His name was Harry Bowles, and he used to make this recipe all the time. We are going to use coconut, but I will tell you, you can substitute any fruit you like. Just strain it well. I've done it with pineapple. You can do it with apple pie filling. You can make it anything you want. And this is not one of those that uses a boxed biscuit mix. This is homemade. Let's set our oven to 350. This recipe utilizes a blender, and the very first thing I'm going to show you is how to assemble this, because if you don't put it together correctly, all the liquid is going to come out of the bottom, and I think I've learned the hard way. So I'm just going to show you. You're going to turn it upside down. Now, the first thing you put is the rubber seal, and I know that's where a lot of people mess up, but put the rubber seal first, then the blades go upside down on top of that, and then the last thing you're going to do is put the ring on, and make sure you put that very, very tight. Don't think you're canning. It's stronger than finger tight. It is tight. So put your blender right in front and center, because that is what we're going to start with. Everything gets added to the blender. It's as simple as that. And what I'm going to do is start with 4 eggs. As a lot of you know, I use all organic foods, or at least as many as I can get. But you do not have to. I have used this recipe for 30 years, and I didn't even know what organic was back then. So start with 4 eggs, and you are just going to crack them and put them into your blender. One more. I use my fingernail to help crack that, just like that. My hands. After the eggs, we are going to put in a 1/4 cup of butter. A 1/4 cup of butter is 4 tablespoons. So all I've done is cut this in half, and you're going to put it in there. It can be cold. It's not melted. Just put in a 1/4 cup of butter right into the blender. When I started this recipe, it would call for 1 cup of sugar, and honestly, it was just too sweet for us. So at this point, I put in 3/4 cup of sugar and a 1/2 cup of flour. I leveled that flour off by taking a knife and scraping it across so that it was indeed exactly level. A 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I use Himalayan, and for recipes I try to use fine salt, not the coarse salt. And then a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. And I bumped that, but oh, he's still good. Now let me show you something on my baking powder. It has a huge dent in it. Because of this dent, I paid 75 cents. Always be on the lookout. Now I did bump that, so I am going to stir in just a teeniest bit more. I want to make sure that my pie rises up. Would you believe we almost have all the ingredients in there? All right, 2 cups of milk. Now the next ingredient, I am going to add vanilla, but I have also used almond extract, and this is pure vanilla. The almond is really good. So look at what your other ingredients are. If you're using coconut, I usually use vanilla, but if you're using other things, almond is just as tasty. Now there's only 1 more ingredient to add, and that is the coconut. I'm actually going to mix this up without the coconut first. Make sure your lid is on there. There was one time I was cooking when I was 20-something and ended up with pumpkin all over my ceiling. So make sure you put the lid on there. And I put a hand on there just to make sure it is on good. And I'm going to start with blend and move it on up. by blending it, and then I ended up on liquefy. You're going to want to use your rubber scraper and make sure that there isn't any flour or sugar, dry ingredients stuck on the side. Make sure it's all in there. And it looks pretty thick. A lot of that is the butter that is now broken into little pieces. But at this point, I add the coconut. Now the reason I add it last is I like to have big pieces in there. I don't want it all ground to nothing so that it's just coconut flavor. I want to have coconut pieces. So for this I'm going to use the pulse. And so I'm just touching that to blend it a teeniest little bit. Just like that, and that's all I do. I'm not going to hold it on liquefy for the coconut. This is actually a stoneware glazed pie pan. I have been using stoneware for absolutely decades, and so I continue to use them. You do not have to grease stoneware. It is fine. Since there's so much butter in there, it's going to keep it moist. This pie forms its own crust. And so you're going to carefully pour that in there. Oh, it's looking good. The coconut is definitely nice big pieces. And scrape out anything that's still in there. Yeah, there's a little flour that didn't get mixed in. All right. Just like that. And spread it around. Awesome. The very last thing I'm going to do is sprinkle some cinnamon on there because, oh, we just love cinnamon. We put cinnamon on everything. Sort of like cheese. Cheese goes in most things. Everything else gets cinnamon. I even put it on my popcorn. But there is organic cinnamon. And that's what it looks like going into the oven. It is going to bake for 1 hour. I will check on it, at about 50 minutes and keep checking on it. And it will become golden brown with a crust. I'm gonna clean this all up and I can't wait to pull this pie out and show you how wonderful it is. Look at that pie. I just pulled it out of the oven. It is still bubbling because it's nice and hot. And let me tell you, this pie is delicious, both warm or cold. As it cools down, it's gonna sink a little in the middle, but it is fantastic. And thank you so much for joining us today. Please like, subscribe, and share. I will print this recipe down below so you have all the measurements. And remember, you can't do everything in one day, but just do something every day. Have a great day. Bye-bye.